Okay, we should be live.
All right, I'll admit everybody.
Okay.
That was a great responsibility I had last time, Randy.
How did you do with it? Well, I saw it. It looked all right to me. Not as good as me, but
I also have a message that Tom's note taker is requested to record this meeting. That's not you, Tom, is it?
It's not me. Hey, my screen is such that I can't reach the mute button, so if I wave, you may need to mute me. Oh, there it is.
Okay. Letting people come on.
yeah, there's still a few coming in, but most are in. Okay. There's one.
Okay, it seems one more. A few more coming in.
Okay.
All right. It's 6:03 on June 4th. Welcome to a board meeting of the Hammond North Association. For the call to order, Jan Welch,
Yes.
Randy Vaughn,
Here.
Tim Fritz,
Here.
Tom Steeds. Tom, you just raise your hand. Tom is here. Tracy Smiley
Here.
and Chris. Are you around? Chris is muted. Well, Chris will be in and out, but we still have a quorum. All right. So that's the attendance. I'd like to call on Jan Welch for a moment of remembrance.
Thanks, John. It's come to our attention that we've lost a growing number of people from our community over the last year. And the whole board would just like to take a minute to say their names and to remember them. We chose the last year because it seems like it's been about that amount of time since we've had that acknowledgement. These are not in any particular order. And if I've missed somebody, please feel free to put it in the chat because it's very possible. The first person is Antoinette Asimus. The second person is Bill Feinberg, Roy Push, Dave Olhorn, David Burke, Joan Hoxie, Jerry Federley, Audrey Wood, and Philip Brody. We missed them all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. Next, recognize Randy for the minutes of the last meeting.
Yes, I would move that we approve the minutes that you received recently of the May 5th special board meeting.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of adopting the minutes, raise your hand. 6 members of the board. And we'll put Chris Conti down as abstaining, I guess, as long as his computer's on.
John?
He's waving. He's waving. Okay.
Okay,
John?
yes.
I see that somebody mentioned they could barely hear me. Shall I repeat the list?
If they could barely hear you, yes, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Sorry about that. Antoinette Asimus, Bill Feinberg, Roy Push, Dave Ulhorn, David Burke, Joan Hoxie, Jerry Federley, Audrey Wood, and Philip Rhodey. Thanks.
Tim, does that cover the owner in 702?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's a note in the chat about Bert Rosenberg also, Jan.
Thank you, Bert Rosenberg. I did not have that.
Chris, I don't know if you had a chance to look at the minutes for the May 5th special meeting where you voted before you came back to adopt those minutes. Do you want to cast a vote or abstain from that?
Does he need
Yeah.
help?
Trying to mute him.
Hmm.
Okay, I don't believe I was here for the May 5th meeting.
All right.
Was
They should abstain. Okay, so next I'd like to call on Greg for the building manager's report.
Thanks, John. Good evening, everyone. Couple of brief things this evening. About a week and a half ago, we completed repairs to the hot water loop. And then earlier this week, discovered a minor leak in the cold water loop. So we're monitoring that currently, and I'm going to look for some more favorable or cooler weather following the spike that we've had the last few days. We don't want to try to do that during the 80, 90 degree weather, but that will affect water to the entire building when we have an opportunity to schedule that. So there's no immediate threat, but it's something that needs to be addressed. So we'll be able to communicate that schedule either by the end of this week or first of next week, when we're able to align the contractors and try to do it on a more favorable weather date. But beyond that, I'm going to defer back to the committees, John. There's been a lot of activity with the committees over the last couple of weeks in particular, and I don't want to misstep or take anybody's thunder, but I'm happy to support that as they go through it.
Okay, thanks, Greg. Then the committee reports, building and grounds, Jan?
The Building and Grounds Committee has not met, but it's because virtually all of the building and grounds activities are occurring in other meetings as a result of our looking at the budget and trying to scale back and figuring out how to go forward. For example, there's been a meeting with Alta Fiber, and we're hopeful on that score, waiting to hear from them. We've reported on the cutbacks in the grounds contract. The pool, of course, is not open. Fans have been pulled. There's a lot going on there. It's just not officially under building and grounds where it's occurring. That's all. Unless somebody else has something to add.
All right, contract committee, Tim?
Yeah, Jan has already mentioned it. We had a meeting with Alta Fiber last week. They pulled their crew together, and we have another meeting scheduled with them tomorrow morning at 10 to try to get the contract straightened out with Alta Fiber. So, and again, that's not really a contract committee thing, but it's a contract that we're trying to get minimized as much as possible.
Okay, thank you. Tom, I don't think there's a health and safety report, is there? Okay. on,
Yep. There's nothing new to report since our last meeting.
okay. Tracy, Finance Committee?
Yes, so for the finance committee, I don't know if you want to wait to the committee report or for me to give my finance readout, or I can do both right now. I don't know what you prefer, but
It's up to you.
okay. So the finance committee meets every Friday. We met last Friday, and one of the things we did was we walked through the April financial reports, which is what we shared about a month ago. The May financial reports will not be available at this moment, so we should have those next week. Greg, correct me if I'm wrong.
correct.
And then we could share those out. We went through those financials and we did an estimate based upon the baseline of what our operating expenses are and how we can work to save on some HOA fees associated with the reduction of all these expenses. So I'll share that through later on, I guess, in the financial update. So we went through that and we'll share that in a minute.
Okay. Randy, Legal Committee?
Yes, we've met with the lawyers a couple of different times, both on the phone and in person, mostly dealing with the partition action and a direct sale of the building. And I'll be reporting on those in more detail in old business and in new business. So that's pretty much it for us.
Okay. All right, those are the reports. So for old business updates, there are a number of updates here and new business. So for old business, the fire watch. We met with Captain Rob Hart on Monday, and 3 members of the board. We reviewed to him the reports that for 2 weeks we've sent those reports that Hunt gives to our Dolberg to the fire department. They went over, Captain Hart went over most of those items. And basically he said, at the end of it, he said, well, let me just see the fire panel. So regretfully, the fire panel had been worked on. He wanted to make sure there were no errors on it. Turned out the fire panel had a fault on it. Because of a fault on it, he couldn't really approve suspending the fire watch on any of the occupied floors. So that's been fixed. I think, Greg, that's been resolved and that's been sent to Captain Hart, right?
That's correct. Yes.
So that was Monday. However, going out the door, Captain Hart was appreciative of all the moves that were taken. People are moving out, and he said that we no longer had to do the fire watch on the unoccupied floors. So we still had commitments for that day, Monday. From Tuesday on, though, there's been no more fire watch on the unoccupied floors. So tremendous reduction in the staff and the obvious expense that we're doing. So we got to follow up. I think Greg's going to follow up tomorrow morning with Captain Hart to find out where they are at this point. He wants to touch base with Art Dolberg and also Joseph Payton, the specialists who have been dealing with mainly. We expect to be able to list the fire watch, but at this point, it's the security guard and 1 maintenance for the first shift, and it's 2 fire watch people for each of the other 2 shifts to do the occupied floors. So that's that. Now, I don't know if anybody wants to have questions, but before I would like to have questions item by item, I should have said at the beginning, in order the number of things we're going to get to that may take more time, I'd like to limit the questions from owners to 2 questions until we get around to it all. And depending upon time, maybe we'll do another one, but it should be 2 times that you raise your hand. And I appreciate everybody's cooperation. So with that, anybody want to use the electrical hand about the fire watch? Anything about that? Okay. So next item then is the update on the petition action. That's Randy.
Okay. Yeah. On Monday, John, Jan, and I met with the lawyers, Chris Finney and Julie Gugino. We discussed the details of the petition action. Their firm is using the title reports that are just about completed for the entire building. They use those to get the to be able to find out what mortgage companies are involved in our building in the various units. Those mortgage companies need to be placed on the partition action suit as defendants. And so they will compile that. And as soon as there's still a question about is there one or two floors left out of the title search, but as soon as they have all those, about a week after that, they should be able to file with the court our petition action and get that rolling. And then there are some other details related to the partition action, but they kind of dovetail with a direct sale of the building as well. They apply to both situations. So I'll just save those for the new business part of my report.
Okay.
Tim?
And I think the numbers, go ahead, sorry, Tim.
Well, I think I jumped ahead of you, John. I think there's
Oh.
been some questions on Facebook, and there's been some questions from owners and individual emails regarding what the activity is on the voting for the petition action. And as I understand it, we have 137 owners who have joined the partition action. The number of people opting for the partition has dropped off severely. I think we've only had like two votes in the last 2 weeks that have come in, but the ballot box is still in the lobby, and we still encourage people to join the partition action shortly, because once things get rolling with the title searches and the mortgage companies and things like that, then it gets a little more difficult.
Yes,
let
or
me-
no, I'm sorry, but yeah, he reminds me of that. And also, if you can join right away, if you haven't joined and want to become a plaintiff in the suit, please do that soon, because once the suit is filed, to amend the suit is adding you as a plaintiff. It takes time, takes, in our case, money. So yeah, if we can get that set now as to who's a plaintiff, who's a defendant, that will save us a lot of hassle later on.
Let me just add that the ballots are they're in the lobby. The sign on the ballot box is talking about 2 different votes. So for the petition action, those ballots are still, Mickey has them in the office. You can ask them for her. Probably best you return to her, but you could also put it in the ballot box. But there's another vote coming up that we'll get to later. And we also have approached Finney to do the DocuSign, which a significant number of people used DocuSign last time. So they're going to set that up. And we haven't ironed out all the details, but I'm pretty sure it'll be the same way we did it before for petition action, that basically we'll send an email out, I believe the way it works, to all the owners. You reply to Brandy at Finney, and she'll send out the DocuSign document that then you email back to her after you sign it.
Yeah, that's not for the partition action, though. That would be for a direct sale or the other issue of the reserves.
Well, it's actually both. We've already been doing it for partition action. We've had the
Yeah.
DocuSign for that, and we're looking at doing it for the 2 votes coming up also. So the bottom line, though, is that in terms of not stepping ahead for petition action, you can still do it either electronically or getting the ballot. They're not in the lobby. We just have the 2 new ballots we'll talk about shortly. You can get it from the office. Any questions about anything else, Tim, in the chat?
No, there were some questions that I think Tracy's going to answer later on.
Okay. All right, so that's it for petition action. So for new business, there's a landmark insurance report, and I think, Tim, you're going to report on that.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest things that we're spending our time on lately is the landmark activity. SIL has escalated it to their upper echelon, and they've got the CEO is in contact with Landmark. Their attorneys have been involved in order to try to escalate the situation and get it expedited for us. We did receive the check for the $4.4 million yesterday, and SIL has already started pursuing today. There is a total of 11 million, and we've collected 4.4 of the 11 million. From what we understand, the $11 million, although it's not being paid yet, has been authorized, and they are rounding up the funds to pay us that. So SIL is working on that next $7 million recovery for us. And like I said, we exchange correspondence and telephone calls almost on a daily basis to try to keep this thing expedited as much as possible.
Let me also add that we decided today, after further discussion, this morning at the rebuild meeting, or the construction meeting, that we need to have a follow-up conversation with Jason. It'd be with board members, with SIL. We'll ask Isaac Finney to be there, and we're going to ask Driehaus to be there, given that they know the insurance and they'll know better than us what is being said and what's accurate and not accurate. And hopefully that will shake more funds loose. But as I'm sure many of us are very jaded about this, and we'll do the best we can.
Two quick questions on chat. One of them, somebody asked what happened to the 25 to 30 million. The 11 million is the next increment. I believe the number that's outstanding right now is somewhere around 22 million. And we will continue to go after that also. But Landmark has asked for some paperwork, and we have supplied a certain amount of paperwork for them to authorize the $11 million. And now that's what we're working on, the 11. And then we're also working on the final payment to get that underway also. The other question was, who is SIL? SIL is hired by the previous board to be our agent to collect the money from Landmark. So we work through SIL to collect the money from Landmark, who is our insurance company.
And then there's one more question. Who is Jason?
Jason is our direct contact at SIL. He's the guy who works with us on a daily basis. And in the last couple of weeks, we have escalated it up the ladder at SIL, and we've got the CEO and their legal department involved to try to keep the slow walking of the payments to a minimum.
Let me take another stab at the Aaron's question about how do we, because it's the big money and it's what we need. It's important to get all the limits of our insurance policy of 55 million, which is we received 33 million. That to date, not counting the money this week, that left 22 million. That was divided up into two packages of 11 million. And the first 11 million, Landmark was going back and forth whether they're going to give us 11 million or they're going to break it up into 4 million, 4.4 they had handy, or 7, or back to 11 million. Eventually they gave us the 4.4 million. We received it this week. We're going to be approving bills later today because of that. Not all of them, certainly, but some of them. And we hope to get the remaining 7 million of that first $11 million. There is the remaining 11 million that's still to go to get the full limits of our 55 million insurance policy.
John, and there was
one more chat question. One more chat question about, do we have enough claims in process to meet the limits of our insurance? We have in excess of $65 million in claims filed through SIL with Landmark. So we have more money. We have more money filed as a claim than our insurance policy will allow us to collect.
Okay. With that, payment of invoices. Tracy?
Yes. So I'll make a motion to pay invoices for those over 5,000, which is the limit of what we need to do the motions for. So first, I'd like to make a motion to pay Finney Law Firm in the amount of $6,976.63. These are fees associated with pending litigation.
A second.
Is that one bill, Tracy?
That's one bill, yes.
Okay. Any discussion on that? Randy?
No, I was seconding if we
Second,
didn't.
sorry. Okay. All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. The next bill, Tracy?
I'd like to make a motion to pay Finney Law Firm in the amount of $11,571. This invoice is for the partition action and the work that they are performed and attending those meetings regarding such.
A second?
Second.
Randy? Any discussion? All those in favor? Okay, unanimous. The next bill, Tracy?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to pay Total Restoration in the amount of $305,622.45. And this is for the additional billing period from February and March invoicing with the mitigation services that they provided. We've been sitting on this bill for a little bit of time until we were able to get the insurance money from Landmark.
I should note on this that there has been a question and dispute with TRS about the money for the fans. If people remember, we sampled in the hallways as to how effective the scrubbers in the hallway were, but we didn't sample to the end of March. So the fans didn't get removed. Scrubbers didn't get removed till April.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to pay Total Restoration invoice 2896 in the amount of
We didn't
$157,655.
vote.
We didn't
vote
resolve
on
I'm
the
sorry,
other
didn't
one.
vote. Sorry.
I second her motion on the first TRS invoice.
Okay.
Yeah, Randy?
And the fan question that you just brought up, is that included in this particular invoice?
It probably is.
It is because this invoice was back in February and March.
Any other questions? All those in favor of paying this bill?
Tracy, there was a question on the amount of the invoice. Can you reread the amount of that invoice?
1 second, let
It
me go
was
back.
305 something, I think.
The previous one? Okay. So invoice 2858 in the amount of $305,666.45.
And Tim, did we vote on that one?
Yes.
We did.
Okay. And now you're moving on to another one?
Yes, this is so all in favor? Did you do all in favor for that one?
No, we didn't get a second on that one. It was for one. How much was it for again?
Invoice for Total Restoration, 2896 in the amount of $157,655.36.
So how much are we paying them total right now? Is it 3 invoices to
paying-
TRS?
I'm sorry, Jan, you're breaking up a little bit. What was that?
TRS, how much are we paying TRS tonight? How many invoices? 3?
So there's 2 invoices in the amount of $305,622.45. The other
Okay.
invoice is $157,655.36, and that's totaling $463,277.
Okay, thank you.
Tom?
Tom needs to be unmuted.
Yeah, Tracy, again, what periods do those TRS invoices cover?
The TRS invoice for 305,662 covered end of February through March, and the invoice for 157,665 covered March through the middle of April.
Okay, so obviously they do include those fans.
Correct.
So the argument will be in the future that we don't need that or should talk to.
Correct.
That's it.
And
Okay.
I have the next month's bill for that. So I'm scrubbing it to make sure that it's not included.
Okay.
So I'll second that.
There's
if
a
it-
question, there's a question about the air scrubbers, if we could have done that earlier. We really couldn't have done it much earlier because there was still remediation and work being done in the building. The reason that we did it is because there was no remediation and no work being done in the building, and we felt that the air scrubbers were not necessary after we completed the remediation and the construction work. So that was the kickoff for doing the testing of the air scrubber to see how well they were working. So again, we couldn't do that until all the work had been shut down in the building.
Let me also answer the question Megan asked. The amounts are all in hundreds of thousands. So 463,277 was the total amount of the TRS bills. Randy?
I'm kind of keep track of this. You've got 3 TRS invoices, right? Did we vote on the first one? And if
No,
so,
only
what?
only
There's
two
only two.
invoices.
There's only 2.
Okay, and what was the vote on the first one?
The amount?
We approved the
it's
first.
seven
No,
to
we
none.
voted on the first one. It was
And
unanimous.
that's
on the
6.
first.
I didn't vote for it.
No, I thought you weren't raising your hand on the second one. I'm
I
sorry.
didn't vote.
Okay, how
Well-
about I start over?
Okay, yes.
Here we go
Okay,
again.
How about
I'm trying to get this
about I-
right.
Okay, how about I start over? Okay. For total restoration, invoice number 2858 in the amount of $305,622.45. This covers billing period from February 19th through May 18th for the mitigation work. And yes,
No,
this still doesn't
Excuse me, March 18th.
February through March, sorry,
Right,
March
okay.
18th. And this covers a period where the air scrubbers are still included in this billing.
Okay, call the vote.
I second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, so it's 6-1. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let me do the next total restoration bill. Total restoration invoice in the amount of invoice number 2896 in the amount of $157,655.36. This invoice is for the month of March through the middle of April.
Is there a second on that one?
I second.
Jan seconds it. Discussion. Randy,
Is this still charging us for the fans?
this is charging
This-
us for the fans, but remember, we only sampled it in March. We didn't get the results to the end of April. End of April, beginning of May is when we told TRS, take the fans in the hallway out. Remember also the fans were also for the bypass fans, which provide the ventilation for the really all of the chases. Because from the 10th, 9th floor up, there are no chases. The chases are all open from the 9th floor up. So the only way any ventilation comes out of the units is the bypass. Now, the amount that's being charged is another question. And as the board members know, there's a serious dispute with TRS as to what they authorize, what they believe is a fair price for that, and an agreement that TRS had with Landmark. But to the best of our knowledge, it was not an agreement with the board. So that is still being continued. Certainly they're worth a reasonable price for the bypass fans. But at this point, once we became aware of what this price was embedded in the TRS bill, there's a serious question about it. But again, The problem is they still were the hallway fans. We had not told them to take it out for the period of this bill from middle of March to middle of April. You want to speak to it, Randy?
I just I just think we're paying a bill for something that we didn't need. They never got approval to put them in or whatever it was, so why pay it? Not till it's resolved. That's my feeling.
Jan?
So I have been in the weekly meetings. We discuss this with them every week. They are playing hardball. And they are, they insist they're already giving us a discounted rate. And these discussions are not pleasant and will continue. I understand what you mean, Randy. They put a lien on us before, I think, right? Was it they?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they will do it
Two
again.
to
And
be-
that doesn't mean, let me finish. That doesn't mean we should pay everything, but it will be a fight. They're going after their money. That's all I
Any other
I have a
comments?
I have a ton of questions after that. Maybe we'll take that offline.
have.
Well, let's put it this way, Tracy. You made the motion, and was there a second for this one, I believe? Actually, is there a second for this motion?
I think Jan did.
I think I did.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
Jan
you.
did.
So the question is, should we pull this bill? We paid one, and do you want to withdraw it, or we can always do unanimous consent, but then we need unanimous consent?
The question is for me, do I want to withdraw it?
Yeah, or Tim, withdraw the second. If not, I think we'll proceed. Anybody else want to talk on it? And
Yeah, I don't want to withdraw it. I know there's been a fight with like the detail we just talking about the fans, but this work has been done and completed for over the last 2 months now, and we've held off on payment for this. Not to say that's the only reason why we're paying it, but we've scrubbed the invoices. This has been sitting for quite some time. So
And
I
we
think,
weren't contesting it at that time.
what's that?
We were not contesting it at that time.
Well, and the scrubbers is a minute portion of what the bill would be, and the bill that we just talked about includes it because we had not asked them to remove it at that point.
yeah, we weren't aware of the price for the fans and the agreement. We can look back to the date of it until after we had the results of the sampling, and we
Right.
said the fans aren't effective. Remove the scrubber fans on the hallway. And then they came back with, well, you still have the bypass ventilation fans, and here's the agreement that we had, and here's the charge that's there. But that, again, was after the time period of the middle of April of this bill. It took over a month. It's very frustrating to get the results from Mac Paran for the fire particles. And to David's question, we could do that, consider paying part of the bill. I'll talk to Greg about that. And the problem with paying part of the bill is that's a bookkeeping nightmare. However, other contractors have cooperated with us, and we are going to split some bills in half in terms of stretching out the payments so we can keep the reserves at a reasonable level.
So for this bill, the fans are included. So when you say pay a portion of the bill, I'm not sure what that means.
Did they itemize the bill to include
Oh,
to
yes,
say
it's
what portion
itemized.
is
Yes,
fans?
it's itemized. Yes.
Well,
I think this basically takes further discussion with TRS, but I think it takes discussion once we put them on notice that we wanted the fans out. We didn't even know what this bill was at the time we
Right.
wanted the fans out the end of April. And as much as I think we have to renegotiate, negotiate, because I don't think it's renegotiation, what we're paying for the few fans that are in there.
And that will be the conversation for the next bills that I've not sent through.
Exactly.
You know,
Any
they're
other discussion?
sorry, yeah, they're playing hardball with us on the fans after we told them to move them. I think we need to play hardball back.
So
Yeah,
shall we
there's,
vote?
Oh, that's
Go ahead.
another conversation.
Yeah.
Well, it pertains to a vote. Any other comments?
So do we have contention on paying the bill for 157,655 because the other one passed? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, the other one passed, and it's a 157, middle of March and middle of April, Bill 2986. Well, rather than prolong it, might as well call. Yeah, Randy, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I call the question.
Okay. All those in favor of paying this bill, raise your hand. Okay, all those opposed? Abstentions? All right, 5 for it, 1 against, 1 abstention. It passes. Okay. All right, more invoices.
Yes.
Hey, John,
Yes, Tim.
I would like to make one comment before we leave that, because there's a lot of stuff going on in the chat that says, don't pay them, let them put a lien on the building, let them sue us, let us foreclose, let us do all this other stuff. The problem is that we can't do anything in terms of the partition or the direct sale if there are suits hanging out there. So anything that's going to lead to more suits is going to prolong the action of getting rid of this building. So I just want to say that, because that's been a lot of discussion that you guys have been having with Finney, is the fact that there are these outstanding suits out there, and we've got to get all that stuff cleaned up before we can do anything.
And I will add to that, Tim, this is work that they performed months ago. This is not something that we're contesting that they didn't do the work that they need to do. So I agree with that, Tim. Before we can do anything, we have to clear up our debt. All right. So motion to pay invoice 15909 for Hunt Builders in the amount of 67,937.40. This work was performed from March 3rd to March 31st. This is another one we've sat on for a little bit, waiting for the insurance funds to come in.
I second.
Any discussion about this bill? No discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? 6-1.
6-1.
6-0 and 1 abstention.
Oh, okay.
I make a motion to pay invoice 15908 for Hunt Builders in the amount of 98,983.81. This bill is work performed from March 3rd to March 31st.
Do you have a second? Tim? Discussion. Jan?
Do we have the April bill yet from them?
From Hunt,
Yes.
I do not have the April bill from Hunt as of yet.
I was just wondering how much, how it compared. But
There is a smaller one for May that I'm vetting. It's like $2,000. And then another smaller one that they sent through for, want to say 36, but I have not vetted those yet.
thank you.
Tracy,
there-
could you describe what's in this bill? One owner asked, what did they do in March?
What's that?
What the work was performed in March?
Let me go back. So the work that was performed in March, hold on. So back in March, we still had the dumpster and portable restrooms removed. They billed for the meeting cost. They billed for the this is the last portion of the shuttle driver off-site parking portion of the bill. And then the staffing costs. After this bill, as I mentioned, the next one is very small in the amount of $2,026.
I'm not sure that's all that we'll get billed for that month, but
Oh, I'm sure. Because since, you know, the work that they've been doing and with some of those city requirements, I'm sure there's going to be more coming.
right, but it should be less.
Yes, it should be less than like the $98,000 and $67,000 bills.
What we will have is the expenses for the other work, the safety measures that the board approved by unanimous consent. So the emergency lighting, exit signs, some smoke detectors, sealing up the chases on the floors that were occupied.
Okay.
So I don't think it was the cost for the meeting room. Was there, Tracy, was a cost for a meeting room?
No,
Somebody,
Meetings.
no, something else.
So Tracy, did they line itemize their markup?
when you say their mark.
The percentage at the bottom of every one of the hunt
Percentage, yes.
bills, they give us a
Oh,
percent.
yes, they do the
3.5%.
percentage at the bottom. Yes.
Mhm. And did
All right,
they,
what is the, go ahead, Tom.
on the markup, did they mark up their own labor or just the outside services labor
The markup is 3.5% of the total bill.
of the total, including
Yeah,
services provided by Hunt?
it's the total.
Okay.
That's in the contract that was previously signed.
Okay.
All right, which invoice numbers is this again?
Say that again.
What is the invoice number again?
This invoice number, hold on, let me pull it back up. 15908.
And what was the total amount?
Total amount was 98,983.81.
$98,983.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any
All
other
right,
questions?
one more.
Well,
Well, no, we have
vote
to-
yet.
We have a
Oh, I'm
vote.
sorry.
Okay, all those in favor of this bill, raise your hand. All those opposed? Abstentions? 6 for, 1 abstention. Okay, what else do you have, Tracy?
All right, so the last one I have, and I know John, I saw your email, is the seal invoice.
Yeah.
The seal invoice is for the recovery of funds. So as mentioned before, we received a check for $4.45 million, and Jason/Seal charges a fee rate of 7.5%, making this total balance due $334,297.05.
Do I have a second? It fails for lack of a second. And just personal viewpoint, as Tracy said in my email, we just got the bill this week. I think that still can wait a little bit. In terms of Steve Kaufman's comment, I think the total number of bills that we approved tonight was around plus or minus around 700,000. So we
Yes.
still have 3.7 left, but we're well aware of the limitations. I have one bill in the excess of $800,000 that the contractor is going to divide in half. That's a Hunt bill. And so we don't have to pay it all at once. And we'll see what we can do.
There's some smaller outstanding Finney bills as well that came over the email from Greg. So those are on the list, as well as the ones that I mentioned, the small ones from Hunt. So those will be reviewed this coming week as well.
And as for the contract renegotiated at this point in the game, having gotten now, I think $37.5 million, I find it highly unlikely that we can renegotiate this contract. And I think it's too far gone to actually get somebody else in now to get the last amount of money. That's my personal opinion. All right, those are the invoices. Tracy, do you want to talk about reduction of homeowner association fees?
Yes, but first I want to talk about delinquencies. So I did get that report. I'm going to report out through May 15th. So first I want to start with April's delinquency was around 469,143. And that was approximately 37 count of owners. This month, through the 15th of May, the delinquency report is a total of $524,540, and that is a count of approximately 40 owners that are more than 30 days delinquent, is how I'm counting that number.
Which, as much as we save money, if we don't get the money in, it's difficult to reduce fees. However, that's what's going to be on the agenda to talk about.
John, I just requested to share my screen. Here we go.
Yeah.
All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Not
No.
yet.
Oh,
Oh, my screen just went black. Here we go. Now can everyone see my screen?
I see a black screen. There
There
it
it
is.
is.
Here we go.
It takes, I don't know what's happening. It takes a little bit of a minute. What I did, I mentioned in the last finance committee, we went through the April financials, and we went through line item by line item. We talked about the cuts, as Jen mentioned earlier, and the reduction of certain items like groundkeeping, pool, exterminating, the cable contract, TV, some usage reductions, obviously from water, HVAC, and things like that. And so what I did was I took that baseline dollar amount that we reduced, and I calculated out what that cost reduction meant to the owners. So this is a draft of the HOA reduction after expense reduction run rate. The expense reduction run rate would be August forward. So when everything's in flight, August forward, we look to be able to save approximately 25% of the HOA fees. What I did here was Greg had sent over the fees with the associated unit numbers or stack numbers and what those current fees are by stack.
Tracy, Tracy, is
sorry.
it possible to enlarge that any?
People should also be able to enlarge on their own screen.
If I can do some magic here. Try that. Does that work?
It's a little
That's
better.
Yeah.
Okay, let me do it one more time and see if that.
Oh, yeah.
That's good.
All
Thank
right.
you.
So what we did was we took the current HOA fee assessments by the number of units, obviously, and we had budgeted 275,138 on a monthly basis of what we should receive in HOA income. Now, with that, we know that we have approximately 151 owners who pays regularly. So we've taken that into consideration. As we know, I just read off the delinquency report, that there are certain owners who are in a situation where they can't pay or they're in a financial hardship. So what I did was I took that 25% savings and I calculated that reduction based upon the current HOA expenses. So with that 25% savings, that would mean that each stack's new HOA expenses will be what's listed here. And I will share this out later on, but I will say, and I will say this again and again, that this is just a draft. Obviously, when we get closer to the run rate of being able to see those expenses drop, then I will share what those final numbers will look like. So what I did here is I estimated what that income would be if all owners who currently are paying, this does not consider any future delinquencies on top of what we currently have. If all earners who are currently paying, that would yield us a HOA income of approximately $173,349 on a monthly basis. So that would be a 25% reduction in HOA fees. If we were to say, okay, if all owners pay, right? I just put the scenario in here just to say what it would look like if all owners were to pay their HOA fees. That would be an HOA income of approximately $206,000 and $206,353. So I just want to stress that a couple of things. The finance committee, myself, and the rest of the board members are taking all of these expense reductions very seriously. We are working very diligently to reduce a lot of the operating costs, also to reduce some of the things we talked about earlier with taking the air scrubbers out and making sure that, we ensure that we review the bills and make sure, if we have any other issues that pop up, we really meet with these contractors and Greg to understand what those costs will be associated with. So I just want to stress that is occurring, even though, we haven't had a board meeting in a couple weeks, which we're having them so frequently, that just rest assured that this is occurring behind the scenes. And as we continue to work on those expense reductions, my hope is that this 25% will continue to grow. There are some other levers that we're trying to pull within some of the operating expenses. But what I will say is what would help the board in our financial situation is that when we talk about exiting the building in August, we need to make sure of a couple of things. So in order to reduce, in and out flow of the building, in order to secure its safety while, no one is occupying the building, we will suggest or remind owners that there's a couple things they need to make sure they consider, which is ensuring that cars that are left in the lot or in the back garage are removed after vacating. That will dramatically cut down on the happenstance of their car break-ins, plus all other assets. I see a ton of bikes and other things out in the parking garage and lots that, we don't want to have to be responsible for if the owners no longer live in this building. The other thing I will say is once, the building becomes vacant, I want to stress for everyone to please remember to submit their forwarding mail address. That takes about 30 days for that to actually start to happen. So I just want to remind everyone of that. And then just remind everyone that when that also happens, that everyone vacates the building, that, laundry services may not be there. I know some, owners come in, do laundry and certain things like that. And so we really want to be able to reduce the foot traffic in and out of the building to make sure the building is secure. Obviously, with people not being here, we just want to make sure that the building is covered in order to sell. So I just wanted to remind everyone. Oh, and the last thing, please make sure you empty your storage bins. I personally almost forgot about mine. So when you are moving out or you are coming back and schedule time to retrieve anything in your units, please ensure that the bins are also emptied.
All right. Thank you very much, Tracy. I think with the explanation. I understand that I had this spreadsheet earlier that this is the income of just the people who are paying regularly. So that does take into account the loss of income, and I appreciate that.
Right.
So the question then is the 173,000. At this point, I think the last month, April, I think we met that. We did have to
Yes.
borrow money from the reserves though, so I'm not sure why we had to borrow money from the reserves if we met that amount of income.
So last month, the issue with the reserves is the insurance premium that we have to pay. Now, these assumptions do not take into consideration a couple of things. We know insurance is coming up, right? And we have not factored in if those insurance premiums will go up or down. So that's not factored in here. Another item that's not factored in here is an increase in legal expenses for litigation. We currently are spending approximately $12,000 a month with a lot of the Finney work that's going on with the litigation. But if certain things start to expand, or if there are trials and things like that, that is not factored into this number. So there is some wiggle room, John, to your point, but we just want to make sure that we're covered. And I wanted to give a picture of the owners of, what this looks like as we continue to see delinquencies. To your point earlier, we want to save money, but it's difficult to save money when we can't cover the bills. And so this is just a projection I wanted to put out there to ensure the owners that we are working on this, and we are stressing that we need to reduce costs in order to reduce some financial burden.
Any other questions from other board members? Randy?
Oh, not from a board member. I have some on chat here.
Okay, go ahead.
What's the last day to get our possessions?
There are a number of points, and I've seen them in chat room, the laundry room, the mail room that Tracy mentioned, and I know they've all been talked about in the finance committee. They've been talked briefly in the board members. There hasn't been a hard decision on those. We have to make some hard decisions. Clearly, we can make easier hard decisions now that we don't have the expense of the fire watch, so the needs of maintenance personnel are not as great, and we'll be talking about that. But there hasn't been a hard decision that the laundry room will not be available or the mailroom won't be available, but there are things that everybody you have to clear out. So the bottom line is that at this point with the city, we can allow possessions to be in the to the end of August, but sorry, the end of December, the end of the year.
Right.
But we all have to figure out how to do that. We don't need everybody trying to get everything out in December with snow out front and just blocking up. Difficult to do it. So we do have to figure out how that can happen. And we urge people to do all the above, and we'll have to make further decisions.
We need to
And
talk.
these were really, I'm sorry, Tim, these were really notifications. The reason I stress that is because, once we get past August and owners are still moving things in and out, obviously we'll have to have, additional, people on site to do that, additional time to do that. To unlock and lock up to do that. Obviously, we have to have a gate open to do that. So this was just a notice to say if you could possibly get your possessions out before then, please do so, because it will, come at a cost to not do so.
So another question was about the insurance. I know people, well, let me wait. Let's remember to do the insurance, the chat room question. Any other questions about this? And
Tim, you had your hand up?
No, I was just going to stress the same thing, Tracy, that the longer we allow people to get back inside the building, the more we're going to have to cover the building, which we don't want to do. So I think that December 30th date is something that we needed to talk about.
Yep. So let me just jump ahead to one of the questions of the chat room about insurance. I know some people are having trouble. One, I think they were telling people who are out of the building that they just should get minimal insurance. There's not a requirement to have more than minimal insurance, basic liability. And Greg, I don't know if you want to speak to what you have mailed out to some owners who've asked that about the possibility with the state of Ohio fund.
Well, yeah, we've been asking, or at least referring folks to Ohio Fair Plan. I don't know if anybody's had success with them, but that was one potential option. Because everyone's entitled to be insured, and that's what Ohio Fair Plan was devised to do, to cover those that have difficulty or have been denied coverage in other avenues. So it's Ohio Fair Plan if you want to try that, and they should be able to at least provide general liability. That's my understanding.
Tim's question about mail, that we haven't decided any date and would give people well in advance a date, as Tracy said, probably at least 2 months notice if we're calling shutting down the mailroom, given the time it takes to forward mail.
Yeah, it takes about 30 days, which I found to be odd that it takes so long. But again, if owners wait to do that, then that's, someone here opening the gate to let the mailman in and things like that. So we just want to stress, as much as we want to reduce expenses, we also need your help to do so.
Randy?
There's a couple of questions as to why do we need insurance if no one's allowed in my unit? If nobody's allowed in the building, why do we need any insurance?
Well, one is that people are in the building. There are people living in the building still, but there are people going throughout the building to retrieve their appliances or to storage room or to get the mail. So that is why, and the overriding decision is really, it's in the declarations. I believe it says that people have to have insurance. So we're bound by what's in the declarations. Chris?
People, we are all required to have insurance, HO6 insurance, and the Ohio Fair Plan, I have some experience with that. In order to access the Ohio Fair Plan, you have to go through an insurance agent. You can't directly access the Ohio Fair Plan on your own. So you work through your current insurance agency, or perhaps you find another agency through which to access the Ohio Fair Plan. That's what I know.
In terms of the question about the maintenance people, our advice from the lawyers is that we would be liable, one, potential lawsuit if maintenance staff damaged any of your equipment, and two is that if the maintenance man was injured in doing that, we're liable for work comp claims. So advice we've had from the law firm was that the maintenance staff should not do that work, but you're welcome to have somebody come in to assist you. They have to see the same disclosure form, but otherwise they're permitted to come up with you. So Tracy, do we want to have a proposal for reducing fees?
Did you
If
say a
not-
proposal?
Yeah, if not, another board member might be willing to make one.
What
I
would be the
think- I think-
proposal? What is the
Yeah.
proposal? What does that mean?
She basically, John, all she's done so far, she's put together a structure that she's going to work from. I don't know that she was in a position to say this is what we want to do tonight.
Okay.
I mentioned though, John, as we get, closer to a lot of the discussions we need to have, this is a draft. I will finalize a draft based upon some of the decisions we said we needed to make, as far as, for example, when owners move their things out, what that cost is going to be, and try to reduce as it actually comes, and prepare a final draft of this. And then I think at that point we can share it as a proposal and say this is what we're
Jan?
this is where we're gonna land. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Jan?
I would hope, I mean, it's my expectation, tell me if others disagree, that within a month we will have a proposal. There are
Yeah.
a lot of things that are going on that are reducing our costs. And I know that the delinquencies are higher, but we need to address this.
Yeah, I would hope that it would be less than a month. My only point is that Tracy just had a chance to put this together in the finance committee on
Yeah.
Friday night. So we've only had a day or two to even look at it and think about it. So I
Right.
just think that we need to have a little bit more board level
Yeah,
discussion before we come forward with a firm proposal. But it
agreed.
is, I am not against expediting it. I think we need to expedite it just as quickly as we can, but tonight is just a little bit too soon
Yeah.
in light of the fact that we just got the numbers.
Right.
Right.
Well, I was hesitant. On the other hand, I was convinced more the other way around. But I defer to the board, but two other facts. One, we have to make a decision before the July payment is close to being due. We have about probably, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to make a decision, or else people are going to already be paying their July dues early, and it's complicated. I mean, they'll have a credit then, so we could do it, but we really should get it done before, I'd say, June 23rd, 24th, somewhere around there. The
That's fine.
second point that really swayed me a lot, that rather than get into, as industrial hygienists are known to do, get into the numbers, the thick of the numbers a lot, is we just got the check for $4.4 million. And therefore, we have the funds to make up any potential shortfall if Tracy's numbers are anywhere near accurate, which I think undoubtedly they are. The reductions in our expenses is difficult. We got to figure those out. But I think we're on the verge of doing that. So I would be tempted to make some small incremental 10% reduction now to be changed. But as long as we do something in 2.5 weeks, well before the July payment, that's fine. But we got to have that commitment.
We will have an answer by that date.
Yes,
Undoubtedly.
we should have an answer at least by, I want to say next week I'm on vacation, but at least by the early that following week. I know we've all been trading emails about some of the items, but as long as we get together, it should be happening sooner than later.
Great. Okay.
But
And
again, keep in mind the assumption does not include increases in insurance or litigation. So I will just say that.
yeah. And I should say at this point that the board is well aware of a lot of pressing questions. We still have some more to go through here. And basically, we're probably going to have to call executive sessions probably every week. So anyway, we'll see how that evolves. And we also know many owners want a regular day at a meeting. We're not close to announcing it, but we will have one day of the week, a certain week of the month, that we will have a regular meeting. Not the only one. We're also aware owners are asking about an owners meeting, and I think that's on our agenda also to discuss. As to the question about the new insurance rate association, the new insurance won't come up as it did last year and the year before, as the previous board painfully knows. It'll be down to the wire. It'll be June 30th before we get it. We have tried to see if there are other alternatives in insurance. This is there. It's not. Is that a item? I don't
No.
think we had. We didn't have an item on the agenda, so let me just do it now, which is that that's when we're going to be in the excess market. And the last year's, the way the insurance works, it works in levels. The first 10 million of insurance, second 10 million, and then 35 million. And so people, when there's a claim, you pay out of the first 10 million. In this case, all three levels are penetrated. All three levels have to pay out. The first level, the first 10 million in the year we're ending, was the highest rate of the premiums. It was basically $500,000 premium for the first $500,000 of insurance. We were trying to get out of the insuring 55 million. If there's any way, and we're still trying to figure out a way to do that. We've had many discussions with Driehaus, with Isaac, the law firm, and trying to figure this out. But even if we get the first 10 million, it still is very expensive. Jan?
For the first 10 million, it was $500,000.
Yes.
So also, just in terms of how we look at it, to me, when I look at this, I think, why would we be insuring at the level we were before? Because our building has sustained so much damage. And I have put that argument forth. However, we still, according to the declarations, I think, or is it the bylaws, it's one or the other, have to insure for 100% of rebuild, except for the footers or something. And We could change that and just be in compliance with state law, which requires 90%. So we're looking to see whether there's any way possible we could get around that horrendous burden. So we're looking at it.
But the other one is HO6. Insurers want to see a copy of
Yes.
the building insurance, and it's difficult to see a way out of it.
Yeah.
All right, Randy, move on to direct sale of the building.
Okay, well, this, all right, well, let me just go. One of our lawyers, Chris Finney, he believes that the petition action might take 5, could take 10 years.
Oh, shit.
Now that ought to shock everybody. It did me. But this does point out the advantage of selling the building directly to a qualified buyer if we can do that. And that's what I'd like to talk about here right now. A direct sale would be quicker and possibly yield a higher price than we would get through a petition action. So we're going to keep the petition action going. We've set it up. We'll file it. We'll do it, just in case we can't sell the building directly. But our first option, I think, or our thrust right now is focused on trying to sell the building directly. And to that end, John and Tim and I met on Monday, and Jan, excuse me, Jan, did I say that? Jan, John, Tim, and I. We met with a gentleman on Monday who represents a group of investors who are interested in purchasing the Hammond North building and property. Their basic offer is for $12 million. As we spoke, they threw in an extra 2.5 to 3 million for repairs to the building and some other things that would benefit us but facilitate their plan for what they want to do with the building. Their plan, though, and that's attractive, but their plan, it requires getting permission from the city to start to rebuild again in the building. And so we're working with this group to prepare a letter that we can provide to the city that would give them permission to approach Art Dahlberg down at the city hall and try to get permission for their particular plan. His group really seems to be motivated. They really want to do this, but you have to understand that right now, this is all in the discussion phase. There's no final firm contract, nothing like that. But we certainly will update you as things develop along these lines. Now, also, we are looking at the idea of a broker in case that particular deal, I'll call it, in case that falls through or doesn't pan out, we would like to bring in a broker to market the building and see how many investors we can attract and see what goes from there. Now, personally, I don't know. This just seems so much better than a petition action. I saw one of the questions in the chat right before I began speaking said, how can we hang on here for 2 years? Well, now, according to our lawyer, it could be 5 years, could be 10. You know, I at least am going to actively pursue this, and I think a lot of the board members are in agreement that this is the way we need to at least look. Now, understand though, any direct sale of the building is going to require an agreement from 100% of the owners. And for that reason, we are sending right away. I believe it got in process yesterday, but we're sending out an agreement form to all owners for your signature. If more than one person's name appears on your deed, both of those owners would need to sign this agreement. And this form is going to ask for your permission to sell the building for any amount greater than $11 million. This will allow us to negotiate with any other potential buyers if the offer that I just talked about, if that deal falls through, we can negotiate with others. We don't need to tell the people we're negotiating that $11 million is our bottom line. If they want to offer considerably more, that's all fine with us. Now we realize that getting 100% of the owners to agree to this is going to be very difficult. I don't know the exact numbers, but I know, we had votes for board candidates. We had a vote to stop the sale, the building, stop the rebuild. There are like 40 people who didn't vote at all in either of those instances. So we have some people that, I don't know, they don't listen to the building, to the meetings. They're not, they don't listen to one calls. They're not concerned, or and then there's some that, unfortunately, are not able to do these things. So it's going to be a real task to try to get the owners of 180 units, and as I said, that's more than 180 people, to get all of those to sign on to this agreement. That's going to be difficult, but we are certainly going to give it our best effort. Now that's the good news, I guess, if that's good news. And now the bad news, or at least an assignment for all of us. A major problem, both in the direct sale of the building as well as in the partition action, no matter what happens, when we go to a closing, no matter how we reached it, either through petition or through a broker, when we go to a closing, we have to have all mortgages resolved. Okay. Now, if you have a mortgage, it would be paid off from your proceeds from the sale. But if your portion of the proceeds isn't great enough to cover the amount of your mortgage, then you'll need to reach some agreement with your mortgage company to make up that difference. Either you're going to need to make arrangements to pay the difference out of your own funds to the mortgage company, or you would have to get the mortgage company to agree to a lesser amount than that which you still owe. This could be a time-consuming and difficult process. The building cannot be sold, nor can a petition action be concluded if there are outstanding mortgages. So if you have a mortgage on your unit, you need to think about that. You need to consider, and it's hard to say, if the building sold for $12 million, you can use the index of your percent of ownership of the building, multiply that out. You can get a rough estimate of how much you might receive. Compare that to how much do you owe on your mortgage. And if you're quote unquote underwater, are you able to pay the difference or not? And that's a hard question, but that's what we all are faced with. Finney, our lawyer, is working right now on as many creative solutions as he can to solve this problem that's going to arise if we have some mortgages where the company won't agree, or the owner of the unit can't pay off that mortgage. So That's going to be a sticking point. Additionally, your deed to your unit. Please make sure that that is good to go. If you have, if someone unfortunately has died that was an owner, please make sure their name is removed from the deed. If anything like that has happened, if it has gone into a trust or any change that would affect the names on the deed, please you have to do that on your own, but please get that corrected so that we can do that. So those are the two sticking points, the mortgages and the deeds. All of that has to be good and clear before we can. It's just like, I'm sure most of you have sold a house before. It's very much just like that, except now it's times 180. So we need to have everybody get those things in line. And as I said, we're going to work as hard as we can to find us a direct buyer, which should move this much faster and hopefully even yield a higher amount. So that's sort of my spiel for the night.
Yeah, just one comment to always emphasize before I call on Jan, which is that there are two ways to go forward legally of selling the property owned by 180 owners. One is partition action, one is direct sale that Randy went through. So in terms of chat questions, we can't legally sell the building if we don't direct sale, we don't get 180 owners. That isn't in the declarations. That's more because there are 180 owners. And if one owner doesn't want to sell, the building doesn't sell in the direct sale. A petition action, one owner doesn't agree to it, the judge can say we can sell the building. Jan.
So, I was encouraged the other day that that Chris Finney and Julie were racking their brains to try and come up with some shortcuts to this. I didn't take some of those parts quite the same way Randy did. He did say, this could take 5 to 10 years. And he may have even said it'll take 5 to 10 years, but we were going through a lot of what ifs. He's looking for ways to make this as brief as possible, and is thinking of some other possible solutions. He's looking at insurance too. And I wouldn't panic about your deed yet. I mean, they're around to help and clarify that stuff when we get to that point. I think we're getting the form out, and we want to get as many signatures on it as possible. And I think, like Randy says, going that route would be certainly preferable. We would do better financially. And it's much cleaner if we're able to do that. But I mean, I saw, jaws dropping all over the place, and mine does too. But I think we have some steps to go. I'm not ready to give up.
And we have had conversations in the chat room about how to approach this, how to get there. So petition will move forward as long as we said earlier, as long as all the title searches and all the mortgagees, we can move forward legally with that. The 180, what we want to do is we looked at that list and we realized there are about 20, 25, 30 people who have not signed, say, the petition action at this point. We know some of them under advice because the lawsuits didn't sign it, and we couldn't reach agreement on that. On the other hand, there are other people who we don't know about, haven't been in contact with. So the board hasn't discussed it, but that is high on our priority to see how do we reach out to all of them.
Right.
The other one I would say that we had a meeting also with a realtor today, and that was very positive about the possibility of basically leveraging. And a lot of people have offered their services to say, here's the deal. You're paying your fees. At the same time, your building's not sold. The sooner you sell the building, the sooner we're all out from under this. And I think a lot of us think, especially with concrete offers in the hopper, that we may be able to get to people, but there are people who are in old age homes or people who have died and other people have inherited the property. There's a lot, people are in bankruptcy. So there's a lot of hoops to go through, but yes, we have to develop a plan to reach out to them. And that leads to later, we'll talk about a committee with owners as well as board members to try to deal with that. Randy.
Yes, and you reminded me of something. Yeah, even though people in litigation with the board were told not to join the partition action because of a conflict with the law firm representing us. But in this case, it doesn't matter if you have litigation or not. You own the property. So your vote is necessary if we're going to do this. So everybody, all 180 owners, well, unit owners are in this.
Anyone have some something?
And let me add that we missed one item on the agenda, I think the reserves. So the vote that is downstairs is actually, I think it's 2 pieces of paper, and I thought it was going to be one, so it may be printed on the other side. Greg, is it one-sided, those 2 papers?
It's 2 pages now currently.
Yeah, do you think we can?
One
I
for the
think
waiver.
I think tomorrow we need to make it double-sided because the name and address and everything is only on one of the forms. It's not on the reserve vote. So if you get the reserve vote, you don't know who submitted it.
We had some comment that if they signed one and didn't want to sign the other, then would that mean that they are approving or agreeing to both?
Right.
So whatever you'd like us to do, we'll be happy to do that.
We'll have to talk about this with the lawyers, but it's a good question, but I don't think it can be 2 pieces of paper given the way they're written right now.
Okay.
But let me just explain. The other one is that the requirement in the bylaws, or maybe it's the declaration, says that we have to set aside annually 15% of our budget. So there's $440,000 in the annual budget for the reserves. If we can get that waived, then we don't have to put that in the budget, and that's $440,000 we've saved on a year. The only reason we can do it is because we get the money in the reserves from the landmark. So there's a lot of ifs, ands, and buts on that, and it also depends on getting the next payment from landmark.
Well,
But
I'll add
that's-
to that, John. I'm gonna add to that. So it's not that we're gonna save this money. What just happens is we will not have the reserve account. It's not that we save it. We just don't need to pull funds from a different account in order to pay our bills right now.
But right now, the annual budget, beg to differ here, but I think the annual budget has 400, I don't hesitate, rush right in. There are 440,000 is in the budget. So in
Mhm.
other words, I believe that we don't have to have that 440. If we waive it for a year or 2, that's what 2 votes are. We don't have 440,000. We have to set aside to go, as you said, from the operating budget into the reserves. It means we could
Right.
lower.
We're just decreasing the budget. We're not saving any money.
Well, we'll talk later about that.
Okay.
Anyway, that's the vote. And there are 2 votes. One is to waive it for 2025. The other is for 2026. All right. So, Randy, I don't know whether it's time to make a motion. We really haven't, we don't have anything in writing. We have it on the agenda, the services of commercial real estate. We don't have a concrete. Are you asking to
It's just to explore.
explore it? Okay, sorry. Fair enough. Do you want to read the motion then?
Yeah. What wrote it down. I move that the board explore engaging in the services of a commercial real estate broker to facilitate the direct sale of the Hammond North property. And if this is seconded, I would like to speak to it.
Tim seconds.
Okay. I think we all are starting to realize problems that we have with the partition action. It probably won't get us as much money as we would like. It could take a long time. We were originally told a year, then we were told 2 years, now, 5 years, 10. So a direct sale would be much quicker. And if a broker can market the building and get a couple of or several investors interested, it would likely yield a higher price. If the deal I spoke of earlier, where the group that proposed that $12 million offer, they need to get permission from the city. That's not guaranteed. If that falls through, then a broker would be able to provide us with additional people interested in the building. So that's a good idea. It doesn't cost us anything to use the broker unless he's successful. It's just like a realtor. There's no charge up front. But if the building sells, then there is a percentage. It's not the same as a normal residential real estate percentage. It's not the 7% or the 3 or 4%. It would likely be much lower than that because we're talking bigger amounts of money. Yeah, that's my reasoning for saying that we need to investigate a few brokers and see what we can do to get this help.
Tim.
Yeah, it was a good enlightening meeting. I think basically what Randy's saying is this guy wants, for the potential opportunity of selling the building for us. We talked about the Collier estimate, and he basically has said that they will sort of re-examine the Collier estimate. He has a tendency to believe that they would be able to get a better estimate than Collier was able to do, and that they're willing to spend a few weeks on this for us with no attachment, no engagement, no commitment. And at the end of those few weeks, we would have a better feel for what we think we could get for the building and the land. They are very active. These guys are very active in Cincinnati. They've sold a couple of big apartment complexes. They've got a couple condo development plans going on right now. So this is like free information as far as I'm concerned. This is free information, and I think it will help us to encourage some of those people who might be hard to convince. We feel like we can get a significant portion of the 180 votes, but those last few percent will probably be difficult, and we're hoping that this might give us a good selling point to convince those people to come along.
I should also add that I talked today to, I got a call from Dan Driehaus, Brian Baumgarten. They're going to some kind of event tonight that there are many developers, and they wanted a brief understanding of what the direct sale petition, what was going on and what's possible. They thought they could interest some of the developers. So hopefully a little bit potentially better news that we hopefully get people involved and get a higher bid. But all dependent upon getting 100% of the owners to sign.
So Randy, can you recap? There are some comments in the chat about not understanding if they need to sign or vote for something or not.
Yeah, I saw one of them. There is, yes, after the petition vote, there are 2 more votes we're asking. And I got to talk to Greg. We may have to redo the reserve vote. But I think that the vote on direct sale is fine. That's a good form. And people should sign that form. And that is the form that we need 100% to sign of the owners, each owner, all the owners of a unit, in order to have a sale to a broker or through direct sale to the one owner of a unit who's interested in buying the building.
So that's all, and that's not just the owner, just the individuals on the deed.
It's a fine
Well,
line
the
between the
owners.
owners and on the deed. I believe that's
Okay.
one and the same.
Yeah.
And I believe that was true for the petition action too. Yeah, Randy.
Yeah, and I was busy catching up. You explained then with the um, reserve fund. Uh, the idea of the reserve fund has always been to have money on hand for building upkeep, major expenses that were coming up, fixing elevators, repairing the swimming pool, or whatever the heck. We're not going to be really needing to do that. So that's why this vote to reduce the amount that we have to put into the reserve fund. That's why we're asking for approval of that. Is that correct?
I think that's
Correct.
correct.
Mhm.
The other one is money that we need to do something. We have the money that we just got from Landmark, and so that covers some of it in the short term.
And so this vote to approve the sale and all, that's going to be similar to the format of the partition thing that we did a month or two ago. You're going to have the option of, you'll get a cover letter, the ballots in in an envelope, I guess, and
Well,
then
Actually,
the option to.
we haven't done that. We have, well, I don't know, Greg, do we mail out a blank envelope with the return envelope for the ballots?
For the one that went out yesterday, there's not a return envelope enclosed.
Okay, so we don't have a security envelope like election. So it just has to be signed and sent back to Greg, and then he'll scan it and he'll send it over to the Finney law firm. They'll have that.
Do they have the option to DocuSign?
Not yet. As I said, we talked to Isaac about it, and he's moving forward to have DocuSign, and we got to figure. I know it was a bit of a snafu last time how we actually get the DocuSign agreement, and I believe what Finney wants is they want to have the owner ask them for the DocuSign. So we have to just figure out how we get the owner to ask for the DocuSign document. Finney Law Firm Brandy sends it to them. They DocuSign it. They email it back to them.
And will this be posted out on the website? You said they'll be down in the lobby, they'll have DocuSign, but we're not gonna mail. Is that what I just heard?
Well, it's already in the lobby and they're already both on the website. I urge people right now not to print off the one on the website or sign the one in the lobby for the reserve funds because it does not have a name or signature block on it.
I'm just
So
talking about the vote to sell.
Right. So, but there are two votes down there in the lobby and they're right next to each other on the website, I think on the important announcements. So they are there and we're working out DocuSign so people can print it off of the document to sign for direct sale from the website. They can pick it up in the lobby and put it in the ballot box.
But we're not mailing.
It has been mailed. Greg has mailed it.
Okay.
But to avoid confusion, don't mail back or fill out the reserve vote yet. Just when we thought we had it all figured out.
Yeah.
So in terms of questions in the chat about where we get the rules from.
Wait. There's a motion on the floor. We got off the discussion of it, but
Right.
the motion was to engage the services of a broker,
Yes.
and it was
And we have a
seconded.
second anymore just on the question of a broker.
I
Any
thought
more
it was
discussion?
to explore the explorer engagement.
It is, explore it. That's right. It's not to retain a particular person.
Because
Any discussion?
as they said, we talked to one today, but there are a couple of others that people have recommended. So we'd like to shop around a little bit.
Yep. Chris?
I'm going to call the question.
All those in favor of exploring the engagement of services of a realtor? All right. It's unanimous. Okay. All right. Let's do the other chat rooms, chat questions, which is, what are the requirements? Requirements on a petition sale are exactly it's a sentence in 12.5 of the declarations. Right after the sentence in 12.5, the first sentence talks about that 75% of the owners can vote not to rebuild. The next thing after that, it says that it then proceeds, if it passes by 75%, then there is a petition action for the sale of the building. So that's what we're proceeding to get the petition sale, as it describes in that sentence. It means a court action where people sign the petition form. Anybody who signs becomes the plaintiff. Anybody who doesn't sign becomes the defendant. And then there is, I believe, also the mortgage companies also become defendants. They're all notified. We have the title search, so we get all the mortgages. Anyway, that's the way court actions go. But again, as somebody mentioned earlier on the board, this is something that hasn't happened more than once before in condo sales in the country. So with that, move on to the next motion, which I'd like to make. I could hand over the chair. Tim, you'd be the chair for a second.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we form a committee of owners and board members to promote the vote for the direct sale of the building. Just that. Yep. Do I have a second?
Randy seconds. Further discussion? If there's no further discussion, all those in favor of forming a committee for the direct sale, raise your hand. Unanimous. John, the meeting's back to you.
Okay. Other owner questions at this point?
There's questions about the $11 million minimum. That is a minimum. We have every expectation based on our discussions with the owner who wants to make a bid on the building and their commercial real estate, that 11 million is a low amount compared to what we think our building is worth. So 11 million is the minimum. There is no maximum.
And we felt we needed to put a minimum, right?
Right.
Yes, because the original estimate was 9.8.
Right.
After we did some estimates around the market growth associated and then all other assets, then that's how we came up with 11 million.
Paulette?
Yeah, did that 11 million include the land
Yes.
value?
Yes.
Yeah,
Colliers
it's
did
the whole place.
Okay. And yeah, it just seems like kind of locks us in when we sign. If we sign that, we're agreeing that
We're not signing anything that says that. That's just something that we had to put in so that the membership knows that we would not sell the building for less than $11 million. That doesn't go any farther than the membership or the ownership.
But it can go higher.
I know, but we're still, as a member, we're saying, yeah, if you can get 11 million for it, I'm all for that.
No, that's not what it means. It means that that's the least that we would take.
Right. Right.
But
I think you're both saying similar things in different ways. We could sell for 11 million.
Right. If we all signed that, we could sign it for 11 million.
Let's look at the other things.
If a commercial broker goes out there and comes back and all he can get for the building is $11 million, then that's what we're going to get. We have every expectation that they should be able to do that, but we felt like we had to put a minimum in this petition. So that the membership was protected to a minimum level.
And we were able to do the calculation and found that we could do 11 million because the original estimate, remember, was 9.8 million. So after we did our homework and research, we said, okay, we could get $11 million for this and not the 9.8 that was previously shared.
The other thing is
we've put a lot more money into the building than and things that were on order when that appraisal was also done. So we discussed it. I mean, you have a legitimate concern, but after discussion, we decided 11 was appropriate.
put it this way, Paulette, we didn't see we could go much higher than 12 million, which was the one offer we had. We didn't want to scare that potential buyer away. If we went much lower, the fear is we're not going to get people to sign away the rights for us to sell the building for $5 million, $6 million. So it was trying to figure out the best estimate of what we could get. What the information we've gotten since means I think maybe we'll get a higher price, but that doesn't lock us in. It may have potential buyers saying, well, maybe we can get away with offering less. That hasn't happened so far. I mean, the person who offered the $12 million, I think was very amenable, understanding with his plan that he would have to kick in more money and pay for safety measures. And probably if his plan goes through and therefore we're going to be stretch out the process, that we find another way to cover the fees. Because it clearly is hurting everybody, and we have to lower that. Carol Fensel, Tim, can you unmute her?
My question is, why would anyone offer more than $11 million if they know that the owners are willing to sell for 11 million? If we get 180 people say, well, we'd be willing to sell it for 11 million, why would anybody offer more than that?
It doesn't quite say we're willing to sell it. It says that's the lowest amount we're all willing to offer. And I think that what we're getting from both the realtor we talked to today and the individual who's already offering it, they feel, and somebody asked earlier, why would they buy it? Because I think they feel they get other contractors, other work to be done. They can make the building habitable for less than the money that we've heard about before. That's why they're willing to do it. And the other one that, quite honestly, we always settled on 11. Well, 11 was close enough to 12. The potential loss was not that great. You get Carol unmuted again.
Oh,
Tracy's muted too.
It says that if this is not a secret, we've got 88 people, 90 some people on this call right now who already have heard the $11 million. It's not like it's a secret group that know that's our minimum. It's
But the group already
it
knows.
won't be publicized, but it is publicized.
If you think about it, Carol, the Collier appraisal said that the building fixed up was worth $65 million. So there are people out there who believe that they can get this building, put some money into it, and it would be worth $65 million. So there's a big gap between 11 million and 65 million that real estate developers would be willing to take a chance on. So we believe that there will be a competition. We're not going to go out and find the first guy who wants to give us $11 million. The broker that we talked to today, his full intention is to market it to thousands of developers. That's what they do. They have done, like I said, they're working on a condo project in downtown Cincinnati right now, 288 units. They've done apartments. They did a hurricane damaged condo building or a set of condos, 80 condos in Florida. And he feels like he can market this building to a lot of people and it would be a competitive process.
And I'll add to that, we will never communicate. Anytime you sell a building, a home, a car, you never communicate an expectation of a minimum. You always create an expectation that you're going to get above what we believe a broker can get to start a bidding war. So yes, we publicize it here to tell the owners that we believe the building is worth more than what that original estimate is, which is a good thing. But that is not something that we would take into a room, negotiate the sale of the building.
Other questions? Randy.
You talked about altering the forms. Maybe Greg can answer this. Are the forms that are in the lobby right now, are they good to be signed or are those going to be changed?
They're good to be signed. However, as John mentioned, the one for the waiver of the reserve funds, there's not an area that for signature. There's no box or signature lines for that. But however, the vote, there's ample areas to sign that form.
Yeah, so the bottom line is people can vote on the direct sale. There's no problem with that form.
Right.
People should not vote on the reserve. This is playing the reserve. We're gonna have to go back to redrafting it and talk to Isaac, get it cleared and have it reissued. I'm gonna take it out for the website tonight.
And then we'll put out a one call or something when that's ready to go.
Sure.
Right.
We can attach it via one call if that's acceptable, and then we can add that into the lobby as well.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say, Greg, you can go out and send out the existing form you have for the direct sale. That one's fine, so you can do a one call with that tomorrow.
Okay. Yeah, that all went in the mail yesterday afternoon, so folks should be starting to receive that, and we can supplement that with a one call tomorrow.
Okay. Other questions?
Getting late.
Yep.
We got another
Okay.
meeting.
All right, appreciate your time, and we'll adjourn to executive session now. A motion to adjourn?
I'm so moved.
Okay. Thank you.
Is this over?